5 key things to consider in all of this. It's a huge change management exercise. This kind of mobilization, huge change management, and change is very difficult. And we say in Canada all the time that, you know, people might hate the present, but they hate change even more. So shifting to prevention and sustained exits from homelessness means doing things very differently. And we have many examples of where people think they're ready to do that, and they're not ready to do that. They have to do a lot of other things to get there. But we have other examples of communities the same size of Antwerp, this community, Hamilton in Canada, that we've been supporting them to make the shift to prevention, and they're seeing dramatic outcomes for young people and their families, stopping young people from ever becoming homeless because of this shift to prevention. So, and you know, we have quotes from the people in the community doing the work saying, I used to love my old job, but I love my new job doing the prevention work, working with families and young people when they're in crisis, much more. It's better work, I'm less stressed, and the young people are getting better outcomes. And so, you know, when communities start to get there, it changes everything. And so where to start? Consider the role of community-based systems planning. And this is what FEANTSA is here to support you to do, is making your strategy. So as I was saying before, we've been supporting communities to make strategies and implement them for a number of years now, and we've learned a lot. We've learned probably more about what not to do than what to do, and that's been really key. And so we have some key components of a strategy. When you think about your strategy to stop care leavers from ending up homeless, key components, you need a statement of guiding principles and core values. Like, what do you all believe in together? You need to engage the necessary players from the community, what we've been talking about, all levels of government, private sector, nonprofit. Keep collaboration via collective impact at the heart. And your strategy has to be realistic with what the service providers are doing, right? So very important. And it also needs to articulate with other strategies that the government has, right? So the government may have a poverty reduction strategy for Antwerp. Like, how is your strategy aligning with the poverty reduction strategy? What are the intersections? Because that just makes all the work stronger. So, you know, doing an analysis of existing strategies is a really helpful thing to do when you're getting started. And then key, obviously, people with lived experience, and start to be really, really planning for what that looks like and how people are going to be supported to be front and center and really helping you drive the bus. You need clearly articulated goals, objectives, timelines. Very important. You need to assign responsibility. Who's in charge of what? Right? And then hold people accountable, and organizations accountable, government accountable, in a very loving way, but hold them accountable to the deliverables. You need benchmarks and measurable targets. Very important, because you can make some strategy that's like, woohoo, we're gonna stop all care leavers from ever becoming homeless. But if you don't have a clear way of knowing if that's happening, you probably aren't doing what you set out to do. You need to be able to outline the resources that you're going to need for implementation. So you can have like a wish list of a strategy. We want this, 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 and this. But if you don't have any resources to make those things happen, it's very unrealistic. And so one of the things I always tell communities is, don't develop some big strategy and then let it sit on a shelf. Make the development of the strategy be a living activity, and do the work as you're making the strategy. So for example, one of the best things is to make an early win. So to say, okay, in the next 100 days, we're going to accomplish this. And so an example would be in Ottawa, they set a goal. in Ottawa, they said in the next 100 days, we're going to get 150 more units of affordable housing with supports available for young people leaving the care system. And so they work with the private sector, landlords. They brought new landlords on board to provide the housing. They worked with government to provide some social housing units. And they worked with the service providers to provide the support models. And they said, we're going to do this in 100 days, and we're going to do it together. And so that then was step one of their strategy. And so then they built their strategy after that. So that for me was a very important learning, because otherwise you lose momentum. You could say, to the media, tell the story to the community. All of, our coalition in the next 100 days, we're going to do this, and we're going to do it with the community. So that's powerful. I think really important is you have to know what your governance model is too for the strategy and implementation. So, what's that accountability? Who's driving the bus? And it needs to lead to real changes in the lives of young people when it's implemented. Like, it can't be business as usual at the end of this process, right? And I know you all feel that. And it has to be a living plan, renewed on an ongoing basis. And so one of the tools that we use that's been really helpful, the theory of change, is an explanation of how the use of inputs by activities produce a group of outputs and outcomes that set the stage for impact. And I'll give you this. So this is the final theory of change for Kingston, Ontario, for their work around preventing and ending youth homelessness. And there in Kingston, they had a huge focus on care leavers as well. And it shows you where they landed in terms of what activities they thought they needed to engage in to be able to see the impact they want to see. So I've asked Kingston, and they said you can please see this.
So one of the things in doing your plan is taking count of diversity, right? There's not one size fits all. 29.5% of the population of young people who are homeless are LGBTQ2S. That's a huge overrepresentation. 30% are Indigenous, right? And that's important in Canada because of our history of colonialism and racism. Indigenous people make up 4.5% of the Canadian population, but a third of the homeless population. 28% are racialized minorities, right? And so these are all important factors to consider, right? Who is the imagined young person that we want to support? The next thing, Melanie spoke about this already, the importance of lived experience, right? How do we include people with lived experience of youth homelessness? They're either young or they can be older, but they have experienced it in all aspects of the work, the planning, the service delivery, thinking about solutions. And we'll be interested to hear your experiences on this. You can do this really well, but you can also do this really poorly. And so we're trying to work in Canada to develop guidelines and approaches around how to support young people, especially if they're currently homeless, right? Because it can be a bit of a setup to draw people in and say, we're going to have you come and help to develop the solutions. This is going to change the way homelessness works. And then after a year, nothing is different in their personal lives. So it has to be done really well. Okay. Value of data. Okay. In Canada, in addressing homelessness, we don't use data very well. And people don't like collecting them. And we don't analyze it very well. Which leads to a situation where we make a lot of assumptions about the effectiveness of what we're doing based on nothing other than hearsay and so a lot of what people say is happening in their work, there isn't actually any evidence for. And part of the problem too is that people aren't supported to use data very well, right? And so that's where we need to think about that role. So screening is an assessment, right? Where it can be very short or it can be done over time. But it's like, how do we understand the needs of a young person? And the strengths. And this is a really key thing. The most popular screening tools used around homelessness in North America are actually kind of hocus pocus tools that don't have any evidence base for them, and also just look at what's wrong with you. It's like, How fucked up are you, if you can pardon my language there, right? A really good tool should look not just at the risks that young people face, but what are their strengths? What are their assets that we can build on, right? And you know, your tool does that as well, right? And so the one we're working with in Canada is called the Youth Assessment Prioritization Tool, which we've done a lot of work on, that involves the views of young people, but also the worker, is a strengths-based approach, and so that's key. So then you start with, so screen is important, but you have to start with your community priorities. Like you already are moving in that direction. A priority being, how do we work with young people who are either in care or have been in care, and how do we support them in their transitions? Well, the question that you'll need to undertake is like, is every person in care equally at risk of becoming homeless when they leave? Right? Probably the answer is no. So how are you going to make the determination there of where to put your efforts? Knowing that whatever assessment tool you use, it will not capture everyone, right? From there, you know, intake and screen, you'll need to do further assessments, and sometimes these assessments will go beyond what you're doing. They may require some kind of level of professional expertise if you're looking at things like fetal alcohol syndrome disorder or developmental delays, things like this. That's where you might see that. That's where the system integration piece becomes really important. Like, what sort of relationship do you have with other kind of caregivers and service providers to help you get there? So you're going to need your interventions that are going to work with young people. And again, that's going to require more than one size fits all. This is why the model that David's going to talk about is so important. It involves that collective impact work, right? You can have 10 young people, and the type of intervention they need might vary considerably, that they and their family might need. So they need to case manage people, and then data management. What's the data you're collecting all through this? And what do you do with it? Collecting data is important. It helps you understand not just that client, but when you put it all together, it helps you as an organization understand the work you're doing, where you can analyze as a cohort. We call it aggregating the data. You put it together and you might find out, wow, we thought we were doing really good around getting young people engaged in school, but our data is showing that we're not doing well at all. What should we be doing differently? So the data can be used at an organizational level for continuous improvement of your service, right? And so it's a living, ongoing thing. It's not like you collect data and run away. Then, as an organizer or as a community, you can aggregate the data to really help you understand how you're doing. You know, if you set your goal that we want to reduce the number of young people who leave care and wind up homeless, right, you're going to have to draw on different data sources, including your own, but other sources of information, to really see if progress is being made. One of the challenges in the United States, where for years most of their investment was just on emergency services, when they shifted to Housing First, at the turn of the century, this past one anyway, and started investing in Housing First, they made very bold claims that we're going to end homelessness. And the data that has come out over the last 10 years is very compelling, but not in a positive way. The actual decline in homelessness after a massive amount of investment, a lot of it in Housing First, has not shown the results that are needed, right? And not enough attention is being paid to what's the problem here. And what the problem is they're not addressing the flow into homelessness. Right? So the people at the end of the stream with the babies in baskets, I don't know where that myth came from, and it's a horrible idea to put babies in baskets in streams, I think, as a rule. But you know, like, you can continue to scoop them out, but at some point you have to go up and see like who's chucking them in the water, or at the top of the hill in Ireland, right?